Good morning there, 10th graders. Today we're going to be looking at introductions and conclusions. We will start with introductions. So, you may have noticed that so far in our writing process, I have focused on you writing your body paragraphs before writing your introduction, and there's a reason for that. I find it is best to write the introduction last, honestly. And that is because as you are writing an essay, your argument is likely going to evolve. It is going to change a little bit. You may decide you're going to write things in a certain order, or drop an idea or add an idea or something like that. And because of that, oftentimes I found that when I was writing essays in college, when I started writing an introduction before I wrote the rest of the essay, I found I had to go back and rewrite the introduction by the time I was done with the essay anyways, because my argument had evolved and changed. And your introduction should serve as a preview for your essay to come. So if, I write my introduction first and then my essay changes, well, I need to change the introduction because it's no longer a proper preview for my essay. Think of your introduction a bit like a movie trailer, right? When you are putting together a film, like for Hollywood or something like that, you have to write the film and at least begin, if not finish, filming the movie until you can actually put out a proper trailer. And a trailer then will serve to kind of give us a preview of what's to come. But all of that legwork has to be done before you do the trailer, or in this case, before your introduction. Now, when we're looking at our essay structure, it's going to look generally something like this. Your essays will likely have more than 3 body paragraphs, but the purpose still, or the example here still works. You'll see that at the very top, your introduction is very broad and then gets narrow. It goes into 3 body paragraphs, and then the conclusion starts narrow and gets wide. We're going to talk about what that looks like here in just a second. Think about your introduction like a funnel. So you're going to start broad, and then you're going to get narrow. And like I said earlier, that essay is going to tell me what to expect, or that introduction rather, is going to tell me what to expect from your essay. It sets up your argument for your reader. Now when I say broad, I mean we are going to start with the big ideas, right? So your topic in general, right? So if you are writing about, racism in schools, you're going to start with a more broad topic of just racism, then slowly whittle your way down to racism in schools or something like that. Here's what we want to see in your introductions. We want to see a good opening sentence that catches the reader's interest. This is called a hook. We want some background information on your topic. We want an indication of why your topic is important. We want an idea of what your subtopics are going to be. Those are your body paragraphs, and a strong thesis statement. Now the last two, they go together. A thesis statement is going to have an indication of the subtopics of your body paragraphs. Your thesis statement should probably be the last sentence of your introduction. As you get a little bit more proficient and more experienced with writing essays, you can start to mess around where exactly you put the thesis statement, but for now we probably want it to be the last sentence of our introduction. So some examples of good hooks, good ways to start. We can start with an anecdote, a short narrative or story that will intrigue the reader and catch their attention, obviously related to your topic. An analogy, using a simile or a metaphor, saying your topic is like something else, something that is important or interesting or whatever. A quote, a really good, meaningful, and deep quote that will interest the reader, but again, has to be related to your topic in some way. An interesting fact or statistic, a lot of you will have topics that would lend themselves to this. Depending on if it's appropriate or not, you could try some humor or some irony to hook in your reader, right? You're not necessarily making jokes, but you can make some humorous remarks or something like that. Or we could start with a broad remark about the topic. This one's probably the least interesting, but it can work depending on your topic. Some ways that we are not going to start. 1, we are not going to start with a question. Never, ever start your essay with a question. I know that in previous years, maybe a little bit of elementary, middle school, you were encouraged to say, hey, start writing with a question. Consider writing with a question kind of like training wheels, right? That's a good way to begin to learn how to write long-form pieces. But now that you are in high school and in a couple years going to be moving on to college, we want to get rid of those training wheels. We want to avoid questions. A couple reasons. 1, almost every question you could possibly ask to start an essay is going to be a false question. Have you ever thought about what would have happened if JFK wasn't assassinated? No, I haven't. Why would I? That's a weird thing for me to think about just in my everyday life, right? Or it's a question you're not actually looking to get an answer for. And hypothetical questions have their purpose, but they don't really work for this style of writing. So we don't want to start with a question. Number two, we don't want to start with an apology. Right? You're only 15 or 16. So some folks may start, even though I'm only 15, I have strong opinions on, no. Don't apologize for your age. I don't care that you're 15. I don't care that you're 16. You've done the research. You're the expert on this topic. Doesn't matter how old you are, your voice and your thoughts are meaningful. Therefore, don't apologize for it. You can't, you have nothing to do with the fact that you're only 15. It's not your fault. Who cares? Just tell me stuff. Don't start with a complaint. Now, this probably wouldn't happen too much for this particular essay, but if you're writing more of an analytical essay, like American Born Chinese is a terrible book, I don't care. I don't care. Complaining is a really good way to kind of turn your reader off to your essay, right? You want to hook their attention in. You don't want to make them disinterested. And also, if you're writing an analytical piece, for example, I'm going to let you in a little secret. Your English teachers don't care if you hated the book. There's books that I teach that I really dislike. American Born Chinese, honestly, it's one of them. I don't like it very much, but it doesn't matter. Dictionary definition. Do not say, according to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, racism is defined as the blah, blah, blah. Couple reasons that we don't want to do this. One, it's insulting. I can read. Your audience can read. Therefore, we probably know what words mean. You don't need to define words for us. Also, it's boring. Look, I'm an uber nerd, like super nerd. I even have the dictionary app on my phone. It's not exciting. I don't read it for pleasure, right? It doesn't grab my interest, so we don't want to do that. We want to avoid platitudes or cliches like America is a melting pot, freedom doesn't come free, or one that I really hate, since the dawn of man or since the beginning of time. Oh, no, that is lazy, horrible, boring writing. Do not be cliche, right? Those are not original thoughts that you've had. Your introduction should be original. You also don't want to reference your title. By that, I mean, let's say that, your essay title is, why American Sign Language should be taught in schools. You don't want your introduction to start with, this essay is going to be about why American Sign Language should be taught in schools. Yeah, I got that from the title, so you don't need to repeat that. Again, trust your reader. Just like we don't need to give them a dictionary definition, trust your reader to be able to figure some things out on their own. So those are ways we don't want to start. So no matter what, we need our introduction to be broad in the beginning, but not vague. Broad meaning big, vague meaning unclear. We still want to be clear, and we can do that with a big picture. We want to be interested, we want it to be informative, we want it to be clear and cohesive, and we want it to be concise. 6 to 8 sentences is probably what we're looking at for an introduction. Maybe a little bit longer depending on how much you're going to be writing about in your essay, but probably not much longer than that. Let's take a look at some good examples of introductions. These would be great introductions to model after. Imagine being the CEO of a major company making millions, or living in a posh apartment in Paris or London. It may seem like it would be impossible to live like that, but that is not entirely true. This lifestyle can belong to anyone. However, it can be difficult without the proper resources. Many jobs that pay well are business-related, and many of these companies have branches around the globe. Knowing a foreign language can give your career a boost and make your future brighter. This is why it is important to teach young children foreign language. It is easier to learn language when you're young, and learning languages can change the way your brain develops. Elementary schools in the United States should start teaching foreign languages because it enhances society, opens up opportunities, and improves cognitive development. That's a really strong introduction, right? We have an interesting hook, right? The idea of, being a CEO, making millions, living in Paris and London. Ooh, that's interesting. And then it dives into explaining how it could actually be possible, and then really relates nicely to the thesis statement about why language should be taught in elementary schools. Now, one change I would like to see made to this is avoiding second person. We have a lot of you and your. I don't personally like that in this style of essay. It's not first person, which is good. We definitely don't want to do first person, but ideally I'd like to avoid second person as well. Keep it in third person. Number 2. Laws are made to help the people in some shape or form. The United States government passes legislation that is supposed to be in the people's best interest. It does not always work out that way. Take, for example, the 18th Amendment to the Constitution. This prohibited the consumption, sale, and distribution of alcohol. It was passed hoping to better this great country. It was later repealed because so many people were drinking regardless of the fact that it was prohibited. It was better for America to legalize alcohol than to keep it outlawed. Children learn this in the multiple U.S. history classes they have to take over the course of their academic career. The same could be said for marijuana. Despite the fact that marijuana is legal under federal law, it is becoming increasingly more and more popular. Marijuana, or cannabis, is the most commonly used illicit drug. 42% of adults in the United States say that they have used marijuana. Citation. While the situation may not be black and white, numbers do not lie. The use of recreational marijuana should be legalized in the United States because not only has it been successful in other countries and states, but it would also generate money for the government and decrease prison population. Again, really good introduction here. Interesting hook. We know what this essay is going to be about, and we have a good, strong thesis statement. Let's look at example number 3. The spread of ideas has always been a dangerous game. People initially started small with word of mouth and later transitioned into written phrases, but the rapid transfer of thought exploded with Johannes Gutenberg's printing press. Citation. Now the vessels of information could be mass-produced and distributed to the general public for consumption. These vessels were, of course, books. Books that allowed the spread of knowledge to reach places that governments and churches had previously prohibited and triggered the loss of control. Here is where censorship makes itself known. From here on out, books will be banned, burned, and made illegal in an attempt to regain control over the ideas citizens are exposed to through literature. Citation. One place that encourages the introduction of foreign concepts is the very same place where one goes to learn how to read and write them. American schools are now the setting for the most modern-day book banning. Citation. The intentions are to protect children, shield them from inappropriate content and topics of controversy. More often than not, however, the only deed accomplished is stinted learning experience for a child. Practice of book banning does more harm than good to students, as this oppressive form of censorship is unconstitutional, unrealistic, and limits learning. That is a really, really strong introduction. At the beginning, we kind of use more metaphorical language. The spread of ideas has been a dangerous game, right? A nice metaphor there. So really, really strong introduction. All right, next you'll see that there's a video beneath this about conclusions. Go ahead and watch that, and then I'll give you more instructions there.